I'm Dr. Johnny Fever, and this is Ness Lessman. Welcome to WKRP in Cincinnati.
No. I'm Lachelle.
Hi, I'm Don.
This is Morrison Madness.
Yes, it is. So, this is as close to our 1 year anniversary as we're going to get with a podcast. It doesn't fall on the exact day, but...
No, I think it might actually...
From our first podcast?
Yeah, because I don't know. I don't remember. But
anyway.
yes, it's a year.
It'll be our 52nd episode.
No, more than that. Isn't it?
Well, there's 52 weeks in a year. We do one a week.
I don't know. The paper's right there. I don't remember. I don't remember how many there were.
You tell me we've done more than one a week?
No? Well, because there's the preview, and then we did an intro, and then yes, that first week we published 3 in the first week.
Oh. Try and get people hooked.
And then a third one a week out. So
right, you give out the free stuff, and then you start charging them for it.
Right,
yeah.
Except we don't charge for this.
No.
Maybe we should.
So anyway, our first 4 episodes were about the coronavirus.
Yes,
and so we thought, and there's some other reasons why we thought this. We thought that we would revisit the coronavirus.
The long-term effects.
Well, and not just that, the impact from other angles.
Yes.
That we didn't really discuss in what our experience was with having the coronavirus.
Right.
So one of the things that has come up over the last couple months is that we have done 2 emergency weddings, and I feel like we alluded to this. So we got a call on a Friday afternoon from a DJ. This happened 2 different times, about a month apart.
Yep.
From a DJ saying, the first one, he said, hey, my kids tested positive for COVID, and I have a wedding tomorrow, and I'm in quarantine now. And he ended up testing positive a couple days later.
Yep.
I feel like that. And so he's like, are you free to do a wedding tomorrow? So we ended up doing a wedding in the Manna Colonies on 24 hours notice.
Yep. Which usually, and people don't realize that when we are doing a wedding with somebody, the week before that wedding, we both have several hours of preparation.
Well, and by several hours, anywhere from 2 to 12, depending on how comprehensive. If we're doing the ceremony plus the wedding, building the playlist, making sure that we have songs. A lot of times they want really songs that, as a DJ, you may not own those songs.
Not usually own, right.
Because it's special to them. Songs for the first dance, songs for the ceremony, songs for the mother, son, father, daughter, that kind of stuff. A lot of times we have to buy special songs for that. Because, it may be a song that everybody knows, like Perfect by Ed Sheeran, but they want this violin version by Yoko Ono,
Yes.
So there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of preparation that goes into that.
Yeah, I would say
kind of
2
walking
hours.
Through it.
I don't think you have ever prepped for a wedding in 2 hours. Maybe 4. I don't think you've ever been able to put together the playlist and stuff for any wedding in 2 hours. Even the emergency weddings that we did, because it's not something that you can just sit and build that playlist once. You've got to go back and kind of listen to stuff and things that way. And I don't think you always realize how long you're doing that, or you'll work on it for a little bit and then you get up and you might do some dishes or something that way, and then you come back.
Yeah, a lot of times I don't pay attention to how long I've spent doing it, because I'll throw on like Marvel movies playing in the background or Star Wars movies playing in the background, and I don't really pay attention to how long I've been sitting there.
I would say 4 hours. You have thrown together stuff for these emergency weddings, and we're calling them emergency wedding. The wedding itself wasn't an emergency. We filled in as an emergency.
Right. The wedding had been planned for months.
Right. But we, had to build a playlist. Well, you had to build a playlist, but then I also do a lot of prep as far as looking through what the schedule is, making sure I have all of the equipment lined up, that we know what we need.
And we're used to having a 2-hour meeting, whether it's in person or on Zoom, with the clients to go through their timeline.
And that we usually try and do 3 months before, so that way the client can kind of know the caterer, the photographer, things that way. Because sometimes the clients are like, oh, well, we're going to have dinner at 5 and then we're going to start doing the dancing at 5:30. And I'm like, how many guests do you have? Well, 200. Is it a plated meal? No, it's a buffet. You can't get 200 people through a buffet in half an hour.
Right.
It's not possible. So you can't start the dancing in a half an hour after starting the food. And so once we start talking through that, they realize that they need to add on an extra hour for the photographer, or they need the caterer to potentially come an hour earlier or something along those lines. And so a lot of times they adjust stuff after talking with us. So we like to meet with them about 3 months before, if possible. And then the prep before, though. But in the prep, the week of, I would say on average for you, it's probably more like 8 to 10 hours that you put in specifically for their playlists for a wedding. And then I'm putting in probably 5 to 10 hours doing prep work of the paperwork, looking through the schedule, making sure that we have all the things that we need lined up, ready to go. Whether it's games, equipment, are they doing the newlywed game? Do I have that paperwork printed off? Things along those lines. And so I don't think people realize how much prep work and stuff goes in behind the scenes. And it's not stuff that you can really record, and show people this is what I'm doing, because it's 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there a lot of the times the way that we do it, because we have other jobs.
And checking text messages, Facebook messages, emails for updates to their playlist, all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
So that's one aspect where, COVID has really kind of impacted us, and not in a bad way.
No,
but
at this point in time,
right.
No.
But the ways that it has impacted us. And
it's impacted other people. I mean, that DJ then, both of those times, those DJs had to refund the money.
Right.
And so they're out that money that they planned on and probably prepped for. Like, when you have a gig like that and you kind of live gig to gig, you kind of figure out what gigs you have and then what you're able to purchase for equipment or update stuff or what have you. And so a lot of times the smaller companies that are doing the gig to gig, they don't have this slush fund overhead savings account kind of idea. Right? And so that's something to think about. Like, as frustrated as I'm sure those couples were that the DJ last minute had to be like, I'm sorry.
Well, and that's the other thing. Not just frustrated, scared. I mean,
scared.
the one bride called us and she was panicked.
Yes. And so, and I get that. I get that you're panicked, but at the same time, understand that, the DJ isn't doing it on purpose. We don't have any ill will against any individual DJ or other company person that has a small business like that has to cancel because they're sick. That's just part of that life when you live a gig to gig.
Yeah, yesterday we were sitting here at home and my sister called me and, she's like, hey, are you or the boys free tonight? And I'm like, no, both the boys are working. I'm like, what's going on? She goes, well, we're on our way to a wedding and the DJ backed out on them.
Yep.
And I said, I'll check around and see if there's, anybody that I can find that can help you out. I just can't. She goes, you're sick, aren't you? I go, yeah. She goes, yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
So I've been fighting this cold for over 2 weeks now.
Yep.
And I felt bad, but I contacted 3 different DJs, that I could think of that I would highly recommend to help out in this situation. They've all had other gigs.
Yep.
Yep. Those 2 couples were lucky that we didn't have a gig.
Yeah,
that's so unusual because we're pretty much booked almost every weekend.
And even though technically we didn't have a gig yesterday, I feel like that was one of the one day we had off in 2 full weeks. So if we had worked yesterday, we would have gone another 14, 17, 21 days without a break, because this next coming weekend we work Friday, Saturday, Sunday at larger gigs, and we already have gigs Monday through Thursday every week. And so that was part of the decision, because technically I could have gone and run it on my own, but at some point I need to take a break, or I'm going to catch whatever it is that you've got and I don't want it. And then we'll both be sick, and then we will have to cancel a show, and that does nobody any good for us. So,
and that leads into the other side of kind of what we wanted to talk about with COVID. We don't really talk about this a lot. I know they've talked about it in the news about how there's been an increase in mental health issues with people.
Yep.
I feel like it was about 3 months ago that I had to go to the doctor because I had a sinus infection, and kind of was a very unpleasant doctor's visit for me. I'm already stressed out about COVID in that if there's another shutdown, the impact that it had on our business and our personal lives. And we lost about $50,000 in income, and that's hard to recover from.
Yeah.
Even me going out and getting another job didn't make up that kind of money.
No.
And so, there's always that thought in the back of your head, well, what happens if things get shut down? I mean, yes, we're also concerned about the people that are getting sick and being in the hospital. I don't want you to think that this is a 100% selfish thing, but just being realistic, that's something that impacted me on a personal level, and it was very, very stressful. And so this doctor insisted, hey, I got to give you a COVID test. And that kind of frustrated me because I've already had COVID. I'm like, I don't have any of the other symptoms. And he's like, well, you have two choices. You can get a COVID test or I'm going to put you in quarantine. And that, I mean, it really felt very authoritarian,
yes,
dictatorish on his part. I
yes.
was very unhappy.
You at that point did not have any say in your own health care.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the situation.
I mean, I got the COVID test. It came back negative.
Yep.
He gave me medicine for a sinus infection.
Well, and on top of it, you have a sinus infection, which means that your face hurts, your sinuses hurt, and then that COVID test, they didn't do the throat swab.
No, they shoved a yardstick up your nose.
Right. So then it's even more painful, and you actually got worse from your sinus infection just simply because it got irritated. I'm not saying that you were exposed to anything, but being irritated because stuff got shoved up your nose.
I did get antibiotics, and then I got better.
Yes.
But that experience, along with all of the other stressors, then in between now and then, I had a little bit of a cold, and I was deathly afraid to go to the doctor to even find out about whether I had COVID, which then isn't good for the general public.
Right. Because
if I did, then there was the potential that I could have been spreading it. Thankfully, it was just a small cold. It lasted like 2 days, I feel like.
Right.
But I mean, the anxiety of getting sick, and because of the health issues that COVID caused for me, having asthma, the memory issues, the brain fog, all of that kind of stuff.
Creating asthma. You didn't have asthma before,
right,
but you do now. Yes.
Correct. I have it because of getting COVID.
Right.
And then plus the financial aspect. This last time that I got sick, I had just had surgery, so I had to be tested for COVID. So I was pretty sure I didn't have COVID. And then...
Well, and not only that, but you scheduled that surgery because you knew you'd have to do a COVID test. And even though you didn't feel sick at all, we were so concerned about you getting a false positive. So saying that you were sick even though you weren't sick at all.
We had to reschedule the surgery. We
rescheduled the surgery
for 3 weeks later.
So when we didn't have big weddings and stuff, because if you got a false positive, if you got a positive test, even though you weren't sick, that you would have to quarantine, and so would I.
Right.
And then we would have to cancel our weddings with our couples and find other DJs and stuff that way. And so we rescheduled that surgery around that.
So this last time I got sick, and it's an upper respiratory, something in my chest, something in my
sinus infection,
sinuses kind of thing. I didn't want to go to the doctor right away, but the sicker I got, then I'm like, okay, I got to get into the doctor. Well, so I tried to do their online sign-up thing, and the whole time it's stressing me out whether I have COVID or not. I'm so concerned about if it comes back that I have COVID, what's it going to do to my company? What's it going to do to me after I recover from it? How much more health problems am I going to have? And then I couldn't even get in for an appointment through their online system. I tried for 2 days to get in. And finally I just had to call and make an appointment.
Yeah, because if you say that you have any potential COVID symptoms, like if you say you have a cough, then it won't let you make an appointment.
But it's supposed to. It's supposed to let you make a video appointment.
But it wouldn't set it up for that. Right.
And so I get the appointment made, and then this is the crazy thing. I go over there, and she looks me up, and she's like, your appointment's for tomorrow. I'm like, I explained to her what happened, and she's like, well, we can't get you in today. I mean, you could sit here and wait, and we might be able to get you in like 2 or 3 hours. I'm like, I can't sit here for 2 or 3 hours waiting to be seen. I mean, that's just crazy. And I already had a doctor's appointment scheduled
a couple days later.
Right, that had been scheduled 6 months later,
Earlier.
Yeah, earlier. And so But again, all this time, I'm having all of this stress and anxiety about if I get a COVID test and it comes back positive, what that's going to do to my company, what COVID is potentially doing to my body physically. I mean, I can understand why there's an increase in people having mental health issues, not just being locked up in your house, but fear of not having a job, a fear of losing a job, fear of the place that you work going out of business due to COVID. The stress is just unbelievable.
Especially those that have their own business or work hourly jobs where they're getting paid per hour. I know for myself, just because I have a salary position through the university with my GA position, that I'm less stressed about missing work, like turning down this wedding, or I'm also a sign language interpreter, which I get paid hourly. I will turn down the sign language interpreting gigs if I'm not feeling like I've had enough rest or what have you, where I don't feel like individuals that don't have that backup would feel that they have that opportunity, because they live hourly. If they're not putting in specific hours, they're not getting paid. Where when we were sick, if I'm sick for a week, I work double the next week. I put in extra hours for the next couple weeks, kind of idea, to make that time up. But it's not a matter of I'm out a paycheck and I'm not going to get paid this week kind of idea. And so I completely understand the stress on it's a financial stress, but it's stress because of being ill or fear of being ill.
Yeah, anybody that's in the service industry, a bartender or waitress, beautician, somebody that cuts hair.
Yep.
I mean, the list goes on of people that are in the service industry. And whether or not you're good with money and you've saved up money,
right?
I mean, having to go 2 weeks or more without being able to work and have that income coming in, that's stressful. Just the thought of it is stressful. And after the year that we've had, I mean, anybody that has that anxiety or that stress, I highly recommend, talk to somebody, talk to your friends, talk to your family. Don't keep it to yourself and let it sit there and simmer. I told my doctor straight up, I said, I'm telling you, the anxiety that I have every time that I get a sniffle or a cough, and now that I really am sick, it's almost like, and pardon my French, but I mean, I'm very blunt with my doctor. I said, I have fucking PTSD. It was all I could do to come in here today. And she said, well, you know that we're going to have to do a COVID test. I'm like, I know. I wouldn't expect any less. At this point,
we're not trying to hide it.
Right. At this point, I'm wondering if I have COVID, because I have full-on cough and other symptoms.
It had gotten worse
where
over
that
time.
Prior time, I just had a sinus infection.
Right.
To me, that didn't seem like COVID, but according to doctors now, everything is COVID. I don't.
Right.
You
any kind of cold.
You get sick to your stomach and have nausea. That's a symptom of COVID. You got to be tested.
There's a lot, and the part of it is that so many people are affected so differently by COVID. But she even said, at least you told me this that day, was that because you'd had COVID before and you weren't having the same symptoms that you had before, she didn't feel like you were having COVID, because she was like, you would have the same symptoms, you would feel the same way.
No, she said you'd feel similar.
Okay.
But she said we still need to do the test because you could have a variant. I
right.
said, yeah, I totally understand.
Right. Yes. But she didn't. They felt, even before they gave you the test, they didn't think that you had it. They felt like you had a cold, but they have to take all the precautions, which I completely understand.
But by the same token, when I did have COVID, they did not think I had COVID.
No, not
they
to
just
begin with.
They just ran the test to rule it out.
Right.
Yeah, and then when they came in and told me I had COVID, you thought they would have told me that I had cancer, because again, one of the first people, it was so new to them.
Yes.
And the other some of the other patients that came back from that Egypt trip that had it, they were in the ICU. Some of them ended up on a ventilator.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, COVID's no joke. I mean, it's screwing up everybody's lives, from a health impact, a financial impact, a mental impact, social impact.
Yes.
It's insane.
Yes.
So, I just felt like, especially after that conversation with my doctor and having had that conversation with you and how much stress it was causing me, it would be a good time to revisit that on our 1 year thing and let people know, don't be ashamed, don't be afraid to reach out to a friend, to a family member, to your doctor and say, hey, whether you've had COVID or not, whether you're having symptoms, if just this last year and a half is causing you that much stress, reach out to somebody.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, it's been
the last
stressful.
thing is that we want is for anybody to do something to harm themselves because they're under that much stress.
Right.
There's help out there. I mean,
Yes.
we survived luckily without any of the PPP, without unemployment, without other stuff because I was able to go get a different job. But there are things in place for people to get help, even if you have to search hard for them. There are places where you can get help for all kinds of stuff, and shouldn't let this stuff get to you that far.
That's right. Absolutely. Yes.
I just know how. I feel like I'm repeating myself over and over again, but
a little, but that's okay. You're stressed out about it.
Well, honestly, it's a little therapeutic to get it off my chest because it really has caused me a lot of stress.
Yeah.
For so many years, even with, and if you've listened to our podcast, all of the accidents and things that have happened to me where I probably should have died.
Yes.
COVID, I think, scared me more than anything, and the fear of getting COVID. Like, I don't have a fear of walking across the street and getting hit by a bus.
Right.
So I don't have a fear of wrecking my car when I drive too fast. I don't have a fear of taking medicine, even though I had an anaphylactic reaction one time. I definitely have a fear of an upper respiratory cold from what I went through.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a concern. I know every time I feel like I might be coming down with a cold, I'm worried that I've gotten COVID again and that we're going to shut stuff down, and what's that going to do to our company and to all that stuff. So I know it stresses me out. I still have, and I'm not as stressed about it as you are by any means. And then there's a whole nother layer specifically with you that when you get stressed out, then you usually end up getting a flare up from getting stressed out.
From autoimmune conditions, yeah.
Yeah, for your RA and other stuff that way, which then makes you even more sick. So then it's this cyclical process, and trying to get yourself out of that is very difficult.
I can tell you, if I didn't have a partner in my life, I would be even more stressed out because I don't have somebody to help me balance some of that and say, I realize you don't feel good, you have the flu, and apparently all men are big babies, when they have the flu. It's not, you don't look like you did when you had COVID, you don't look like you're dying.
Right.
Kind of thing. I mean, if I had to try and judge that stuff on my own, I don't know how I would.
Right. Right.
Or if I really was that sick again, I don't know how I'd get myself
to
the hospital. I don't know what I would have done.
Right.
So, anyway, I know anniversaries are supposed to be upbeat, happy thing. Woohoo! We made it a year.
We've got a lot of that coming. We'll have more of that coming in our future podcasts. And we're hoping to make some changes a little bit. We've got a new kind of setup here.
Trying out some different things
for the podcast. And you'll hopefully start seeing, maybe even with this episode, we'll see if we can set it up in time by the time this episode publishes, where you can do the Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon or something along those lines, because it's super helpful for us. We have our audio video guy. I said it right this time. Our audio video guy that helps us out, and all he gets is our crappy food. So
crappy food.
Sometimes
I feel like I'm a good cook.
You are a very good cook. Sometimes I cook things and they're not good.
I think it's been pretty good food.
Usually we try and have pretty good food. But any case,
he's been helping us out of the kindness of his heart.
Yes.
Thank God, because neither one of us has any experience in this.
None. I have no idea how to do any of this, and he's not getting paid at all. He's just donating his time. We're not really getting paid from the.
What do you mean not really? Not even fakely.
We're not fakely even getting paid. Yeah,
no, there's no pay. We've dumped a crap ton of money into microphones and
cameras and all.
And we never
that kind
expected
of
to get rich at this, but.
No, we hoped that it would pay us back by the end of the year.
Yeah, we did think that we would have a little larger following than we have, and we'd at least be able to pay for the equipment. And
that hasn't happened.
Kind of reimburse Joe for some of his time.
We're gonna push a little harder yet for a while and see if we can't make a run of this, and hopefully we can keep going with this podcast.
Build it up a little bit. We are going to start trying to get into doing more things like
online courses,
the online courses, and more product reviews.
Right.
We feel like that's more what people. Not that they don't find interest in hearing about.
us.
some of the aspects of our life, but they really want more of that other stuff. So
Right. So definitely let us know if there's products you want us to test out.
Absolutely.
Because we're happy to try and test out some products. But
even the most mundane or most ridiculous, we'll if it's in our budget, we'll give it a shot.
we're all about mundane and ridiculous.
That's right.
So,
So thank you very
Anyway.
much for joining us over the last year, and
yeah, thank
hopefully
you. Thank
things
you
will
very much.
continue on, and we'll be able to a year from now be able to
Have a happy anniversary.
have a happy anniversary, and thank you again over some champagne or something.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. We'll see you next time. Take care.